Hey everyone, how's it going? I thought today I would do something a little bit different from my usual content. I thought today I would run down my top 10 favorite science fiction films. I have watched a lot of science fiction films. I've watched most of the classic ones. Obviously there are still gaps in my watching, but I've watched a lot of them, and I love them. I watch a lot more science fiction films than I do read science fiction literature. I want to change that. I have started to read some more science fiction literature, but I want to read more. But I do love science fiction films, and I've watched a lot. And so I want to do a top 10 science fiction films. So if you're not interested in film, then that's fine. You can pass this movie over, and I'll be back to books soon. But if you are interested in film, then here you are. And if you're just interested anyway, even though you're not a big film person, then, feel free to watch. So, I will jump right in. At number 10, I have End of Avian Galleon, which is from 1997 and is directed by Hideaki Anno. This is probably the hardest sell on the list, because in order to watch The End of Evangelion, you really need to watch the show, the Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is a 26-episode anime, and not everyone will want to do that. But if you do, it'll be one of the best shows you ever watch, and it'll be one of the best movies you ever watch. So, the only reason that the movie isn't higher up, given how much it means to me, is because it is kind of a hard sell. If I were ranking this list solely on how much they mean to me, this would be probably closer to the top 5, rather than here at number 10. But because it's kind of a hard sell, I put it at number 10. Number 9 is a 2016 film directed by Denis Villeneuve. This is Arrival. And this has a soundtrack by Max Richter. It stars Amy Adams, who is wonderful in it. And it is such a powerful piece. I just absolutely adore this film. I think it's one of the most emotionally affecting science fiction films that I've ever seen. Because one of the things that's so powerful about science fiction is that it uses these futuristic settings where there's been some kind of technological advance or change or event that may actually happen, and it uses those settings to explore deeply human subjects that are relevant to us in our everyday lives, in new and interesting ways, and in ways that we couldn't in a non-science fiction story. And Arrival is just the epitome of doing that and having it be incredibly powerful. So there's Arrival. At number 8, talk about emotionally affecting. Number 8 is AI Artificial Intelligence from 2001, directed by Steven Spielberg. And this is about a young boy who is a robot. So he's really not a young boy, but he's a robot in the form of a young boy. And basically he is a child who is forever in search of parents who want him, and society, the people around him, just don't seem interested in being parents to him because they see him as a robot. And it's just wonderful. It's my favorite Spielberg film. It didn't get great reviews when it first came out, but it's slowly garnered more acclaim, justifiably, in my opinion. At number 7, a radical shift in tone and location. This is Hard to Be a God, from 2013, directed by Alexei German, and this will not be the last Russian film on the list. And this is about a Russian scientist who travels to an alien planet, and on this planet there are humans, just like us, but who have not advanced technologically past the Middle Ages. And he goes there to try to help them advance a little bit, and finds that they do not seem very interested in advancing. This movie is full of violent acts. It's disgusting. It's one of the most disgusting films you'll ever see. The people in this country that he lands in on the planet just live in squalor among mud and urine and feces and blood and guts and everything. You do see little human moments throughout the film that show you that, that these people are obviously human, but as a society, they just don't seem interested in moving forward. And what you get the sense throughout the movie is that even though this scientist has come to a different planet, this planet is actually very much like Earth. It's in fact pretty much exactly the same. We don't want to think about our 21st century Earth being like this medieval society full of violence and dirtiness, but it is. And that's something that's very interesting in the film. Another interesting aspect of the film is the explanation of what it is to be a god. The scientist himself is revered as a god, and so it kind of explores kind of the nature of a god, and is a human in god form really that much different from what we think of as an actual god? And that's quite fascinating as well. So this is a really cool, thought-provoking film. Number 6 is Alien from 1979, directed by Ridley Scott. Obviously a horror film, and in addition to just being a magnificently done horror film, what I love about this one is that it just really leans into that kind of Lovecraftian horror, that idea that there are beings out there who could destroy us so easily if we put a foot wrong without realizing that we were putting a foot wrong. You know, because obviously there's just the scene-by-scene thrill of Ellen Ripley trying to escape this alien, but then there's the background where you think, if these aliens reached Earth, they could probably destroy humanity in very short order, very easily. And so I think that there's 2 layers to the horror of the film, and it's so well done. Number 5 is Children of Men. This is from 2006, directed by Alfonso Cuarón, one of my favorite living directors. And this takes place in a near future where women have become infertile, and so there hasn't been a baby born in like 20 years, and most human societies have collapsed, except for the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom has become this kind of Orwellian surveillance state, but basically what the film is about is how to have hope in a world where hope seems illogical, where in a world where that just seems like it's heading towards oblivion, and it's just great like that. Number 4 is Akira from 1988, directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, and this film kind of asks the question of what it would be like if an adolescent was given cosmic powers, and you can imagine where that goes. But it's just interesting to see this main character who just has no self-control, who's just full of rage, be given these cosmic powers and to see what he does with them. It's extremely interesting. Number 3 is Gattaca, and this is from 1997, directed by Andrew Niccol. And this film, like Arrival, like all the best science fiction, is just a personal drama, a personal human drama that happens to take place in a science fiction setting. It has a magnificent score by Michael Nyman. That's one of the highlights of it. It's beautifully shot, absolutely beautifully shot. And it's just incredibly powerful. So, number 2 is 2001: A Space Odyssey from 1968 and directed by Stanley Kubrick. Now, what's interesting is that this is one of those cases where I don't think the film does a good job with that human aspect of science fiction. This isn't a film with a lot of human warmth. The most sympathetic character, as is often said about it, is an artificial intelligence. Most of the humans are not particularly interesting or sympathetic in it. But the reason that it's at number 2 is because it is just visually and sonically one of the most beautiful things ever put to screen. You know, I just can't help myself when a film makes brilliant use of classical music, and this film uses classical music in the best way possible throughout the film, not just in that famous sequence at the beginning with the beautiful Danube and the spaceships, but throughout it. And it's just visually beautiful, and so I just can't help but swoon over how beautiful it is. Like, it's more like a painting in motion than a story, than a work of drama, really. And to be enthralled by something like that for 2 hours, for me, is just a huge pleasure. So, number 2. And number 1, my favorite science fiction film, is a little bit ironic, because it's Stalker from 1979, directed, of course, by Andrei Tarkovsky. What is really interesting about the fact that this is number 10, whereas 2001 was number 2, is that Andrei Tarkovsky himself hated 2001: A Space Odyssey for kind of the reason that I gave, that he felt like it didn't really explore the human dimension of science fiction. And Stalker, of course, is a great example of a film that does explore that human side of science fiction. And Stalker, I think, is just one of the strangest films ever. I think it's one of those films that just is difficult to pin down because it can be interpreted in so many different ways. And so it's difficult to sum up why I love it, other than that it's beautifully done. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey, it is like a painting in motion, but then it also has really compelling and interesting characters in it, unlike 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it also, too, has a really provocative use of classical music. The way that classical music is used in it is very different from in 2001: A Space Odyssey, but it is every bit as interesting. And I can't say much more than that. Unless you've seen Stalker, it would be hard to describe. But, yeah, Stalker, I think, is just one of those films that you could watch over and over again throughout the years and find new things in. So that's why it's number 1. So, anyway, those are my top 10 science fiction films. Let me know what are some of your favorite science fiction films. Let me know what you think of any of the films I've talked about, whether you like them or hate them. And I will leave it at that. Bye, everyone.